Ever feel like someone's playing mind games with you? Like you're being pushed and pulled in directions you never intended to go? In today's video, we're diving deep into the dark world of manipulation. But here's the twist. We're using the ancient wisdom of Stoicism to fight back. By the end of this video, you'll not only spot these tricks from a mile away, but also have the mental armor to defend against them. Ready to take control? Let's go. We're covering 8 sinister manipulation tactics that people use every day, from emotional blackmail to gaslighting. But more importantly, you'll learn how to counter each one using Stoic principles that have stood the test of time for over 2,000 years. These are the same techniques that helped Roman emperors and philosophers maintain their sanity and sovereignty in the face of constant manipulation. Trick number 1. The guilt trip master. Let's start with something you've definitely encountered. The guilt trip. You know that friend who always makes you feel terrible for not doing what they want? That's no accident. Guilt trippers are masters at making you question your own moral compass. They'll remind you of past favors, exaggerate their disappointments, and paint you as the villain in their story. But here's what's really happening. They're exploiting your natural empathy. They know that decent people hate feeling like they've let others down. By amplifying your sense of responsibility for their emotions, they create an artificial debt that you feel compelled to repay. The Stoic philosophers, particularly Epictetus, taught that we're only responsible for our own actions and intentions, not for others' emotions. When someone tries to make you feel guilty, they're attempting to transfer responsibility for their happiness onto your shoulders. Think about it. If someone's happiness depends entirely on your actions, they've given up their own agency. The Stoics would say this is not only manipulative, but also fundamentally flawed thinking. Your worth isn't determined by how much you sacrifice for others. The next time someone tries to guilt trip you, remember Marcus Aurelius's words, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Don't counter-manipulate. Instead, maintain your boundaries with calm dignity. Modern psychology actually backs this up. Research shows that chronic guilt trippers often learned this behavior in childhood, using it as a survival mechanism. Understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps us respond with wisdom rather than reaction. When faced with guilt manipulation, the Stoic response is threefold. First, acknowledge the attempt without absorbing the guilt. Second, evaluate your actions based on reason, not emotional pressure. Third, respond with kindness while maintaining your boundaries. Remember, saying no doesn't make you a bad person. The Stoics believed that true virtue lies in making decisions based on wisdom and justice, not emotional coercion. Your time, energy, and resources are finite. Allocate them according to your values, not someone else's manipulation. The guilt tripper's power comes from your belief that you owe them something. Break free by realizing that while you may choose to help others, you're not obligated to sacrifice your well-being for their demand. Practice the Stoic principle of amor fati, love of fate. Accept that some people will be disappointed with your choices, and that's okay. Your peace of mind is more valuable than appeasing those who would manipulate you. If you're dealing with a persistent guilt tripper, set clear boundaries early. Explain your position calmly, without defensiveness. Remember Seneca's wisdom. The greatest power we have is the power of choice. Stoicism teaches us that true freedom comes from accepting what we can and cannot control. You can't control others' attempts to manipulate you, but you can control your response. Choose wisdom over guilt every time. Trick number 2. The false emergency creator. We've all encountered them, people who turn every situation into a crisis that only you can solve. These masters of manufactured urgency know exactly how to trigger your hero instinct. But let's pull back the curtain on this manipulation tactic. These manipulators are experts at creating artificial time pressure. They'll contact you at odd hours, use phrases like, "I need this right now," and make their problems seem like life or death situations. It's a calculated strategy to bypass your rational thinking. The Stoics would identify this as a classic case of false impressions. Epictetus taught that we should examine every situation carefully before reacting. Is this really an emergency? Or is someone trying to hijack your priorities? The false emergency creator banks on your natural desire to help others. They know that by framing their request as urgent, they can override your normal boundary-setting mechanisms and decision-making processes. This manipulation technique works because it triggers our fight-or-flight response. When we perceive an emergency, our critical thinking takes a back seat to immediate action. The manipulator counts on this biological response. The Stoic response? First, pause. Marcus Aurelius advised taking a step back to examine situations objectively. Is this truly urgent? Or is someone trying to make their priority your emergency? Modern technology has made this manipulation easier than ever. Instant messaging and constant connectivity mean manipulators can reach us anytime. But remember, their poor planning doesn't constitute your emergency. Practice what the Stoics called distinguishing between appearances and reality. Most so-called emergencies are simply poor planning or attempts at control disguised as crises. Train yourself to recognize the difference. When someone presents you with an emergency, ask yourself, would this still be urgent if I wasn't available to help? Often, you'll find that the manipulator has other options they're choosing not to use. The Stoic virtue of temperance is crucial here. Respond to false emergencies with measured calm. Take the time to evaluate the situation properly, even if others are trying to rush you. Remember that helping others is noble, but enabling manipulation isn't. Set clear boundaries about what constitutes a genuine emergency and when you're available to help. Your time and energy are precious resources. Allocate them wisely. The next time someone tries to create a false emergency, channel the Stoic principle of rational analysis. Take a breath, assess the situation objectively, and respond based on wisdom rather than manufactured urgency. Trick number 3. The reality twister. Welcome to one of the most insidious manipulation tactics, gaslighting. This isn't just about lying, it's about making you question your very perception of reality. Let's explore how Stoicism can be your anchor when someone tries to distort your truth. The reality twister works by subtly eroding your confidence in your own judgment. They'll deny things you know happened, twist your words, and make you feel crazy for trusting your own memory. It's a slow but devastating form of psychological manipulation. The Stoics emphasize the importance of living in accordance with nature, which includes acknowledging objective reality. When someone tries to manipulate your perception, they're attempting to separate you from this fundamental principle. This manipulation tactic often starts small, questioning minor details or memories. But over time, it escalates into making you doubt even your most basic observations and judgments. The manipulator's goal is to make you dependent on their version of reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the importance of seeing things as they are, not as others tell us they should be. This wisdom is particularly relevant when dealing with those who try to distort our perception of reality. The Stoic response to gaslighting starts with strengthening your relationship with truth. Keep records, trust your memory, and maintain connections with people who can verify your reality. Don't let anyone shake your grip on what you know to be true. Remember that the reality twister's power comes from isolation. They want you to doubt yourself so much that you rely on their interpretation of events. Break this pattern by maintaining strong connections with trusted friends and family. Practice what the Stoics called cognitive distance, the ability to step back and examine situations objectively. When someone tries to twist reality, evaluate their claims against evidence, not emotion. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics intuited. Gaslighting works by exploiting our natural tendency to seek consensus. But remember, truth isn't determined by someone else's manipulation of facts. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that our power lies in how we interpret events. While we can't control others' attempts to distort reality, we can maintain our commitment to truth and rational thinking. When dealing with a reality twister, maintain what the Stoics called inner citadel, your core of truth and self-trust that no one can penetrate. Document interactions, trust your instincts, and stay grounded in objective reality. Remember, seeking truth isn't just about being right. It's about maintaining your mental freedom. Don't let anyone's manipulation separate you from your own clear perception of reality. Trick number 4, the boundary pusher. Now we're getting into seriously dangerous territory. The boundary pusher. This manipulator doesn't just ignore your limits, they actively work to erode them. They're playing a long game of psychological warfare, and it's time to put a stop to it. The boundary pusher operates by testing your limits in small ways at first. A slight intrusion here, a minor violation there. They're like water slowly wearing away at a rock, persistent and seemingly harmless until you realize how much ground you've lost. Stoicism teaches us that personal boundaries aren't just suggestions. They're essential expressions of our values and self-respect. Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus, emphasized the importance of living according to our principles, not others' demand. These manipulators often use what psychologists call incremental violation. Each boundary crossing is slightly bigger than the last. They count on your tendency to maintain harmony and avoid conflict to keep pushing further. The classic boundary pusher has an arsenal of tactics. They'll call your boundaries unreasonable, make you feel selfish for having them, or claim that real friends, family wouldn't have such limits. Don't fall for it. Stoic philosophy provides a powerful framework for maintaining boundaries. As Epictetus taught, we must clearly distinguish between what is ours to control and what isn't. Your boundaries are firmly in the category of things you can and should control. When faced with a boundary pusher, remember that saying no isn't just about the current situation, it's about maintaining your long-term psychological well-being. The Stoics would view this as an investment in your future peace of mind. Modern research confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively. People with strong boundaries tend to be mentally healthier and more resilient. Your boundaries are a form of self-care, not selfishness. The boundary pusher's power diminishes when you understand their tactics. They rely on your discomfort with conflict and your desire to be seen as reasonable. But as Marcus Aurelius would remind us, true reasonableness includes protecting our own well-being. Practice what the Stoics called prepared responses. Have clear, firm statements ready when someone tries to push your boundaries. Don't justify or over-explain. Simply state your limit clearly and calmly. Remember that maintaining boundaries isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself and your responses. This aligns perfectly with Stoic teaching about focusing on what's within our power. The next time someone tries to push your boundaries, think of it as an opportunity to practice Stoic strength. Stand firm, remain calm, and let your actions align with your values. Trick number 5. The silent treatment specialist. Let's tackle a manipulation tactic that can drive even the strongest people crazy: the silent treatment. This isn't just someone needing space. It's a calculated form of emotional manipulation that the Stoics would have recognized as a form of attempted control. The silent treatment specialist weaponizes your natural desire for connection and resolution. They know that humans are social creatures, and being ignored creates genuine psychological pain. It's a form of social rejection that can feel as real as physical pain. This manipulation tactic works by creating what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the same principle that makes gambling addictive. You never know when the silence will end, keeping you in a constant state of anxiety and hope. The silent treatment manipulator counts on your imagination working against you. While they remain silent, you're likely running through scenarios, analyzing past interactions, and becoming increasingly desperate for resolution. Stoic philosophy offers powerful tools for dealing with this manipulation. First, recognize that while you can't control someone else's silence, you can control your response to it. The manipulator's power lies in your reaction. Marcus Aurelius would remind us that another person's behavior reflects their state of mind, not our worth. The silent treatment says more about the manipulator's emotional immaturity than about you. When faced with the silent treatment, practice what the Stoics called negative visualization. Instead of fearing the silence, use it as an opportunity for growth and self-reflection. What if this silence is actually protecting you from toxic interaction? Remember that the silent treatment is often a form of what modern psychologists call behavioral extinction. They're trying to train you to behave differently by withdrawing reinforcement. Recognize this tactic for what it is: conditioning, not communication. The Stoic response to silent treatment is neither to chase nor to retaliate. Instead, focus on maintaining your dignity and emotional equilibrium. Use the silence as an opportunity to strengthen your inner resources. This manipulation tactic often includes what's called hoovering, when the silent person suddenly returns as if nothing happened. Be prepared for this cycle and maintain your stoic composure when it occurs. Don't let the silent treatment manipulator push you into making promises or concessions just to end the silence. As Epictetus taught, true freedom comes from accepting what we cannot control and focusing on our own actions. The next time someone tries to manipulate you with silence, remember that your worth isn't determined by their response. Focus on living according to your values, regardless of their attempts to control you through withdrawal. Trick number 6. The comparison champion. Get ready to unpack one of the most subtle yet effective manipulation tactics, the art of toxic comparison. This manipulator is an expert at using others' achievements or behavior to make you feel inadequate or pressure you into changing. The comparison champion has mastered the art of making seemingly innocent observations that cut deep. "Oh, Sarah from accounting already got her project done." Or, "You know, most people your age already have this figured out." It's manipulation masked as helpful observation. Stoic philosophy is particularly powerful against this tactic because it emphasizes focusing on our own actions and character rather than external comparison. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The only competition that matters is between who you are and who you could be." These manipulators exploit what psychologists call social comparison theory, our natural tendency to evaluate ourselves in relation to others. They carefully choose comparisons that will trigger your insecurities and drive you toward their desired outcome. The comparison champion often uses what's called upward social comparison to make you feel inadequate, or downward social comparison to shame you. Both are attempts to control your behavior through emotional manipulation. The Stoic response begins with recognizing that these comparisons are external factors, what Epictetus would call things not under our control. Your worth isn't determined by how you measure up to cherry-picked examples. Modern research actually supports the Stoic approach. Studies show that excessive social comparison leads to decreased happiness and increased anxiety. The Stoic practice of focusing on your own progress and values is psychologically healthier. When faced with manipulative comparisons, practice what the Stoics called dichotomy of control. You can't control others' achievements or the comparisons people make, but you can control your response and your own path. Remember that the comparison champion often uses partial or distorted information. They show you the highlight reel of others while comparing it to your behind-the-scenes struggles. This is a false equivalence that Stoicism would reject. The next time someone tries to manipulate you through comparison, channel the Stoic virtue of wisdom. Evaluate your actions based on your values and circumstances, not on carefully selected comparisons designed to manipulate you. Practice what modern psychologists call self-referential goals, measuring your progress against your previous self rather than others. This aligns perfectly with Stoic philosophy and helps immunize you against comparison manipulation. When dealing with a comparison champion, remember Epictetus's teaching that true freedom comes from accepting what is beyond our control and focusing on our own choices and action. Trick number 7. The martyr manipulator. Now we're exposing a particularly tricky manipulator, the professional martyr. This person has perfected the art of self-sacrifice as a manipulation tool, and they're counting on your compassion to keep you trapped in their web. The martyr manipulator uses their own suffering, real or exaggerated, as a way to control others. They're always the victim, always sacrificing, and always keeping score. Their supposed selflessness comes with invisible strings attached. This manipulation tactic works by exploiting what the Stoics would recognize as our natural inclination toward reciprocity and fairness. The martyr creates a sense of obligation through their excessive self-sacrifice, even when it's not requested. The professional martyr has mastered what psychologists call self-handicapping, creating situations where they struggle or suffer, then using that suffering as leverage. It's a complex form of emotional manipulation that can be hard to resist. Stoic philosophy provides a crucial insight here. Virtue should be its own reward. True generosity, as the Stoics taught, doesn't keep score or expect return. The martyr's behavior reveals their actions as manipulation rather than genuine virtue. When dealing with a martyr manipulator, remember Marcus Aurelius's advice about examining people's motivations. Are their sacrifices genuine expressions of care, or are they investments in future manipulation? The martyr's power comes from making you feel responsible for their choices and suffering. But as the Stoics would remind us, we're only responsible for our own choices and actions, not for others' voluntary sacrifices. Practice what the Stoics called assent to reality. Recognize and accept that some people will choose to martyr themselves regardless of your wishes. You're not responsible for their choices or the suffering they create for themselves. Modern psychology confirms that chronic martyrdom often stems from a need for control and validation. Understanding this can help you respond with passion while maintaining healthy boundaries. The next time someone tries to manipulate you through martyrdom, channel the Stoic virtue of justice. Respond with fairness and kindness, but don't let their voluntary suffering become emotional blackmail. Remember that enabling a martyr's manipulation doesn't actually help them. It reinforces unhealthy patterns. True compassion sometimes means allowing others to experience the natural consequences of their choices. Practice what the Stoics called proper evaluation. Assess situations based on reality, not on the martyr's narrative. You can appreciate someone's help without becoming beholden to their manipulation. Trick number 8. The emotional hijacker. Let's wrap up with one of the most powerful manipulation tactics: emotional hijacking. This manipulator is an expert at triggering strong emotional responses to short-circuit your rational thinking and get what they want. The emotional hijacker knows exactly which buttons to push to provoke fear, anger, or anxiety. They're skilled at creating emotional chaos that makes it hard to think clearly or maintain boundaries. It's time to take back control of your emotional responses. Stoic philosophy is particularly valuable here because it emphasizes the importance of maintaining emotional equilibrium. As Epictetus taught, it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. These manipulators often use what psychologists call emotional flooding, overwhelming you with intense emotions that bypass your rational decision-making processes. They might escalate conflicts rapidly or create dramatic scenes to destabilize you. The emotional hijacker's power comes from their ability to trigger what neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack, when strong emotions override our rational brain. But Stoic practices can help us maintain our cognitive control even under emotional pressure. When faced with emotional manipulation, practice what the Stoics called premeditation of adversity. Anticipate attempts to trigger your emotions and prepare your responses in advance. Don't let anyone else's emotional storm become your emergency. Remember that the emotional hijacker often uses intermittent reinforcement, alternating between emotional attacks and periods of calm. This creates a trauma bond that makes their manipulation more effective. Stay aware of this pattern. The Stoic response to emotional hijacking is to maintain what Marcus Aurelius called the discipline of assent, consciously choosing how to interpret and respond to provocative situations rather than reacting automatically. Practice emotional distancing techniques that align with Stoic principles. When someone tries to trigger you, imagine viewing the situation from a distance or from multiple perspectives before responding. Modern psychology validates the Stoic approach to emotional regulation. Research shows that maintaining cognitive distance from triggering situations helps us make better decisions and maintain boundaries. Remember that your emotional responses are within your control, even when others try to manipulate them. As Epictetus said, no one can disturb your peace of mind without your consent. The next time someone tries to hijack your emotions, use it as an opportunity to practice Stoic resilience. Respond with reason rather than reaction, and maintain your emotional sovereignty. Now that we've exposed these 8 manipulation tactics, you're probably seeing patterns in your own life. That's good. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. But knowledge alone isn't enough. Let's talk about how to put these Stoic principles into practice. Remember, manipulators rely on your automatic responses, your guilt, your fear, your desire to be liked. But with Stoic wisdom as your shield, you can pause, evaluate, and choose your response. This is true freedom. Every time you recognize a manipulation attempt and respond with Stoic wisdom instead of reaction, you're not just winning a battle, you're transforming yourself. You're building what Marcus Aurelius called an inner citadel that no manipulator can breach. The journey doesn't end here. Take what you've learned and start applying it today. Notice the manipulation attempts around you. Practice your Stoic responses. Build your resilience. And most importantly, share this knowledge with others who might be struggling with manipulators in their lives. Remember, spotting these manipulation tactics is just the first step. The real power comes from implementing Stoic principles to maintain your mental freedom and emotional sovereignty. Like this video if it helped you spot manipulation in your life. And don't forget to subscribe for more practical ancient wisdom in the modern world. Drop a comment below, sharing which of these manipulation tactics you've encountered and how you dealt with it. Let's build a community of wise, manipulation-proof individuals. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and never let anyone play mind games with you again.